The Earth is alive. Glowing. Burning. Exploding. Now, we take the pulse of the planet and find out what kind of shape it's in. We know one thing. In 2006, it did a lot more than spin. Earth is like a spectacular living machine with 1 billion moving parts. In 2006, there were more than 50 large earthquakes, over 70 typhoons and hurricanes, and 19 deadly tornadoes. The Earth saw its share of giant dust storms, wildfire, volcanic eruptions, and one tsunami. Like Hurricane Katrina last year, some of these events may be symptoms of serious health problems facing the Earth. Now, we look at the biggest of them and see how they rock the planet's basic systems: air, land, water, wildlife, the crucial things the Earth needs to function. To help us understand what happened to the world in 2006 and what role we played, we turn to a team of experts who track the planet's vital signs. Dr. Mike Fay is a top wildlife specialist.
We are the #1 variable on this planet now. The power is in our hands.
Marine biologist Dr. Sylvia Earle has spent thousands of hours under the sea.
Those of us who've come along in 2006 are suddenly aware that we have an unprecedented opportunity to get it right.
Professor V. Ramanathan is one of the world's leading atmosphere experts.
The entire planet is heating up. So we ask, what's different? And that difference is we human beings.
Nobel Prize winner Professor Wangari Maathai investigates the connection between people and the land they live on.
I have hope, and I know that every action each one of us does makes a difference.
Like a team of medical specialists, they're trying to answer one question: how is this patient we all call home? The biggest health problem the planet faces in 2006 is climate change. Earth seems to have a rising fever, and scientists know why. In the atmosphere, gases like carbon dioxide and methane act like a blanket, trapping some of the sun's heat to keep the planet warm. In the right amounts, these gases are a good thing. Without them, Earth would be a frozen lump of rock and ice. But people now pump an additional 7 billion tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere each year, mostly by burning fossil fuels like coal and oil. That makes the blanket too thick. And it can't just be thrown off to cool down. Climate change is rippling through all of Earth's key systems like a virus. One of the first places it shows up is at the polar ice caps. August 22nd, 2006, Beaufort Sea, Alaska. Scientists report a huge hole in the ice sheet. Called a polynya, over the summer it grows to about the size of Iceland. And it's not supposed to be there. V. Ramanathan.
This is the year we witnessed in the Arctic sea ice a huge polynya. This is open water in the middle of this 10 million square million kilometer ice sheet. It's never happened before.
Scientists think this giant hole in the ice is caused by warmer waters and changing winds. Later in the summer, a giant crack opened up in the ice running from Arctic Russia all the way to the pole. It was the first time in history anything like this had ever been seen. But the country-sized Polynya Gap and the mega ice crack aren't the only signs of warming here in the Arctic. Global warming is eating away at the edges of the Arctic sea ice with astonishing speed. Sea ice always shrinks in the summer. But in 2006, it shrank 15% more than it usually does. This is the 5th year in a row it's been below average. Antarctic ice is melting too. All this shrinking ice just speeds up global warming. That's because the snow and ice on the surface of the planet acts like a reflective sunscreen that you might put in the windshield of your car. Around 10% of the planet is permanently covered with snow and ice. But as it disappears, more sun hits the darker ocean, heating it up. The warming ocean melts more ice and the whole cycle accelerates. Less ice, more heat. At this rate, scientists estimate that by 2066, there will be no summer sea ice in the Arctic. But even now, the melting ice wreaks havoc on animals. September 13th, 2006. Field biologists make a disturbing discovery. Female polar bears are becoming dangerously thin. Bears that are too thin can't reproduce. In 2006, females were 20% lighter than 25 years ago. The weight loss is linked to disappearing ice. Polar bears are adapted to hunt on the ice. Their phenomenal sense of smell allows them to detect seals' breathing holes from miles away. Then they lurk nearby, waiting to ambush their prey. But with less ice and much more open sea, seals don't need to rely on the holes to breathe. So there are fewer places for the bears to pounce. They are not only eating less, they are forced to burn far more energy in their search for food.
I'm seeing things just this year that I never, ever, ever thought I would see. Like, oh wow, polar bears might actually go extinct because of global warming. We realized that in 2006.
Wangari Maathai.
One of the disadvantages of environmental degradation is that it's a very, very slow process. And that quite often, the generation that destroys the environment is not the one that pays the price.
As the warming continues, future generations may be threatened by an icy time bomb. If the ice cap covering Greenland melts completely, sea levels will rise 7 meters, flooding most of the world's coastal cities. It's something that threatens half the world's population. This year, the human population pushed past 6.5 billion. 153 people are born every minute. As more people use up more of the planet, there is a sometimes deadly price to pay. February 17th, 2006, Philippines. A huge mudslide strikes the village of Ginsalgan. A gaping scar on the mountainside hints at the scale of the tragedy. Ginsalgan is a farming community of around 1,400 residents with 200 or so pupils in its primary school. Its name hides a clue to the disaster. Ginsalgan comes from a local word used by illegal loggers, meaning to pull logs. Like many places in the Philippines, the slopes above the village were heavily logged, destabilizing the mountainside. 3 months' rain in a single week pulled the trigger. 20 million cubic meters of mud, enough to fill an Olympic-sized stadium 19 times, tore through the village, burying the school under 30 meters of debris. Rescuers fought for days to find survivors, but over 900 people were lost. Sometimes the burden of overpopulation is tragically obvious, and at others, it's almost invisible. June 9th, 2006, Germany. 4.2 million soccer fans arrived for the 2006 FIFA World Cup. This is the greenest World Cup in history, but hosting 64 matches and transporting millions of fans still pumps around 100,000 tons of climate-changing carbon dioxide into the air. Organizers knew this would happen. They also knew there was only so much they could do about it, at least in Germany. What they could do was pay to cut carbon emissions somewhere else. This is called a carbon offset. V. Ramanathan.
The German Soccer Federation, to offset the greenhouse emissions during the Soccer World Cup this year, contributed to biogas generation in my home state in India of Tamil Nadu. That's exactly the type of thing we should be doing.
Biogas generation is a simple, slightly foul-smelling technology, but it reduces carbon dioxide emissions. Take cow dung, mix with water, let it ferment, and pipe the resulting gas to cooking stoves. There's another positive effect. Fewer trees are cut for firewood, and there's less harmful smoke from cooking fires. Over the next decade, the biogas generators will cut around 30,000 tons of carbon dioxide. That offsets nearly 1/3 of the World Cup's total emissions. As world population climbs, our rate of consumption goes right with it. Offsets can balance the effects, like a long walk after a big meal. Putting the world on a diet could dramatically improve the health of the planet, and it could actually help save some of the Earth's wildlife. Vibrant wildlife keeps key Earth systems like forests healthy, but this year, poachers devastated animals on the land and in the sea. Some nations struck back. September 18th, 2006, Congo Basin, Africa. 1 million hectares of jungle and savanna are saved from hunters and developers. In the last several years, unbridled poaching and aggressive harvesting of trees have eaten up much of Africa's remaining virgin forest. Mike Fay.
If you asked me the best thing that's happened in 2006 from a wildlife perspective, President Sassou of Congo announced 2 new national parks that we've been working on for 20 years. And it kind of makes you realize, never give up.
One of the new parks, Ntoku Pikunda, shelters well over 100 different species of mammals, many of them endangered. Think of the forest as an organ of the body. Wildlife works like blood in that organ, keeping it vital. If you take the wildlife out of the forest, it's like draining the blood from the body. The new parks will work like blood transfusions, bolstering the health of the forest.
You know, if every single president does things like that, not just for wildlife, but for global warming and for habitat preservation and for all those things humans need to do, we'll get out of our mess.
The biggest threat to wildlife everywhere is humans. What's happening in the Congo Basin reflects a worldwide trend.
Every nation on Earth is blitzing on Africa right now, trying to sew up every single deal they can possibly sew up to get as many resources for themselves as they possibly can. We see the logging and the agriculture and the mineral and the oil people opening those forests up.
Once roads and villages are built, poachers move in. They're after wild game, also known as bushmeat. Any animal they can catch is butchered and smoked. Then the meat is carried out of the forest. Some is even exported to Europe and the US. It's estimated that 1 million tons of meat are pulled out of the Congo Basin each year. That's the equivalent of 9 billion hamburgers. Wangari Maathai.
The population, the pressure on the land, the pressure on the forest, the pressure on the water eventually makes life impossible because they destroy local biological diversity.
Despite this onslaught, some animals have made astonishing recoveries. June 9th, 2006, Virunga National Park, Democratic Republic of the Congo. Trackers find a rare okapi. It's the first one seen in the park in almost 50 years. Driven close to extinction here by deforestation and poachers, the discovery of an okapi is a major victory for wildlife protection. Aggressive anti-poaching patrols are making a dent in the problem, and the okapi isn't the only success. In the last 3 years in Virunga, numbers of elephants and buffalo have both been climbing. Along with a stable mountain gorilla population, there are now 13,000 Uganda kob, almost as many as in 1960, when there were virtually no human pressures here. But despite the efforts of the anti-poaching force, in the first 2 weeks of October, illegal hunters killed more than 400 hippo. Now only around 300 are left in the park. Though the situation looks dire, scientists know that even a small increase in animal population can make the difference between extinction and survival.
It's all about like 6th grade arithmetic. If there's one drop coming into your cup every hour, what's happening to your cup? If there's one drop leaking out of your cup every hour, what's happening, you know? That's the difference. And it's very simple. So let's just put one drop an hour in.
It's not just scientists who are trying to help the patient. This year, celebrities jumped into the fray. In a big way. August 2nd, 2006, Beijing. Basketball star Yao Ming takes a bullet for wildlife. As part of his campaign for endangered animals, Yao publicly announces he's giving up shark fin soup, a Chinese favorite. Reports suggest that around 500,000 tons of shark fins are sold each year. A bowl of the best shark fin soup can cost more than $150. Sylvia Earle.
We used to worry about man-eating sharks. Now it's man-eating sharks. That's the real worry, and especially shark fins. With the improved economy in China and other parts of Asia, shark fin soup suddenly become an accessible delicacy. People can afford to have a special treat. And as never before, the pressure is on from all over the world.
Pressure may be an understatement. A 2006 report says over 8,000 sharks are killed every hour. That's more than 70 million this year alone. It's a cruel business. Sharks are hauled on deck and their fins cut off. The rest of the meat is treated as if it's worthless. The fishermen often dump the body back in the water. Sometimes the shark is still alive.
In 2006, soccer players in Ecuador were inspired to adopt sharks as their cause. So every time they'd make a score, the Ecuadorian team would go around making the shark sign, you know. When you get sports stars standing up, even little kids, even big kids who are running countries, will get that word. And it will, I'm confident, have an impact in a positive way.
The reason people are warming to sharks is that we've learned they are a critical part of the ecosystem. Removing them can lead to a collapse of the food chain. In the Caribbean, fewer sharks mean an increased number of carnivorous fish, like grouper. More grouper eat more plant-eating fish. Without the plant eaters, algae grow out of control, smothering the reef. So losing sharks could ultimately cause the loss of an entire reef. The destruction of reefs robs coastlines of vital protection. They're the first line of defense in the face of powerful storms that slam the shore. In 2006, there's a growing awareness of the connections between things like wildlife and the land. This year, large tracts of land in China and Africa simply blew away. When land is stripped bare or robbed of rain by climate change, it often turns to desert. April 16th, 2006, Beijing, China. A giant dust storm hits the city. 15 million residents wake to find the streets covered in around 300,000 tons of thick red-brown dust. Hospitals report a jump in breathing and eye problems. Until 1950, China had a dust storm about every 30 years. In 2006, Beijing has had 10. 5 decades of growing population, intensifying agriculture, and lower rainfall has converted fertile land to dust. More desert means more dust storms. and the promise of more disruption in large cities. To knock back the creeping desert, the Chinese mobilize a special force of part-time rainmakers. Farmers and former soldiers fire shells full of silver iodide into the clouds. Moisture condenses around the chemical particles, creating raindrops. China's rain force numbers over 3,000, backed up by 30 aircraft and thousands of rocket launchers and cannon. In 2006, they'll produce 42 billion cubic meters of rain, enough to fill almost 65,000 supertankers. In spite of the effort, China now has 2.5 times more desert than farmland, and the desert is steadily moving eastwards, eating up fertile land. In 2006, deserts expanded, especially in Africa, in a process called desertification. Wangari Maathai.
For me, losing land through soil erosion, through desertification, is a major crisis. To demonstrate the significance of what is happening on the land this year, astronauts observed that there was a lot of dust rising from the surface of the African continent. And that image really made me sit up, and I said, oh my God, by the time that kind of image is visible, imagine what is happening on the ground.
A big contributor to spreading deserts is decimation of scrubland and forests. Trees are like anchors, stabilizing soil and holding moisture in the ground. But in 2006, forests have continued to disappear worldwide. This can speed climate change because trees act like super filters, absorbing carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. So forests are a huge asset in the fight against global warming. Except when they burn. October 27th, 2006, Southern California. A huge wildfire set by arsonists explodes, killing 5 firefighters. It's another giant blaze in what is the worst fire season on record. This year, more than 38,000 square kilometers have gone up in smoke. A large tree can breathe in around 20 kilos of carbon dioxide each year. So losing forests to fire or to logging reduces the planet's ability to heal the changing atmosphere. Regardless of where trees are lost, the remedy is the same. Plant more. In October, in Kenya, the Greenbelt movement, founded by Wangari Maathai 30 years ago, began a massive campaign to plant 2 million trees. The new trees will absorb nearly 900,000 tons of carbon dioxide in the next 10 years. That will offset the emissions created by around 220,000 cars. Though the trees can help limit climate change, their real power in Kenya has been helping social change. The program is run by and employs women and provides them with a sustainable supply of firewood.
The tree became a symbol, an entry point, and a symbol of hope of what people can do for themselves. Certainly, we plant trees, but we also plant seeds of hope.
Planting trees is like a salve on the irritated land. But in a surprising connection, more trees could also help the oceans. This year, higher levels of carbon dioxide in the air had a negative impact on the oceans, hitting marine life hard. March 2006, Northern Pacific Ocean. Water samples taken at intervals along an 8,000-kilometer line show that the oceans are becoming more acidic. The 3-week-long research trip collected over 2,500 samples, so the conclusions are solid and disturbing. A more acidic ocean weakens the shells and skeletons of billions of tiny sea creatures. And while they may be small, they play a big role in generating the air we breathe.
Most of the oxygen in the atmosphere, like 70% plus, comes from these little critters out there, the big green engine in the blue ocean that generates oxygen. Take away their capacity to have their little limestone shells, and we have interrupted something of absolute critical importance, not just to us, but to life as we know it.
To understand how the ocean is getting more acidic, think of the seas like giant lungs. The ocean inhales when waves break, pulling air into the water. The problem is that the air the oceans are inhaling is overloaded with carbon dioxide. And it's the carbon dioxide that's turning the ocean more acidic. Since humans started burning large amounts of fossil fuels, the oceans have inhaled around half of our carbon emissions, dramatically slowing climate change, but paying a price in the process. Professor Ramanathan.
The ocean has billions and billions of tons of water, and we used to think the few billion tons of carbon dioxide we are adding is not going to make much of a difference. But we discovered it does.
While the tiny animals in the sea struggle with the effects of increasing acidity, bigger fish face a devastating method of fishing called bottom trawling. But here, there was good news. March 10th, 2006, West Coast, USA. The United States bans bottom trawling in a 388,000 square kilometer area stretching from Mexico to Canada. Scientists estimate that in 2006, deep ocean bottom trawling destroyed an area of seabed almost the size of Russia.
High seas, bottom trawling. It's like taking a bulldozer to catch songbirds and squirrels. You destroy the ecosystem and you shake out a few pounds of protein.
As shallow water fish stocks get wiped out, fishermen are going deeper. Now, deep ocean species like orange roughy and Chilean sea bass are on the menu around the world. The problem is that deep-sea fish like these grow and reproduce slowly. Some may take 20 years to mature and then live up to 80 years more.
And that little fish, that little orange fish that's on your plate may be older than your great-grandparents. And with it, not just the fish are destroyed, but the places they live that are sacrificed just so somebody can have, for $8.95 a pound, a fish that nobody asked where did it come from, where did it live. At least they didn't until 2006.
Overfishing may be the most serious immediate threat to the health of the oceans. A study released on November 1st predicted that uncontrolled fishing would wipe out most wild fish stocks in only 40 years. But one major development in 2006 can help reverse this deadly trend. June 15th, 2006, Hawaii. The U.S. government establishes the Northwest Hawaiian Islands National Marine Monument. This 360,000 square kilometer reserve will work like a giant incubator for fish. Thousands of species thrive here, including the endangered Hawaiian monk seal, green sea turtles, and 14 million seabirds. Because the system is intact, it's incredibly productive. A giant fish generator that will keep fish in this area vibrant.
What a concept. It has the same strength about it in terms of protective policies as a national park. That's exceptional. It's the largest marine protected area in the world.
The new reserve is a critically important treatment for the ailing sea. Stronger medicine may be needed to remedy rising acidity in the ocean. Scientists are convinced the solution to that problem is cleaning up the air. This year, air pollution went global. What was an urban affliction has now gone systemic. July 28th, 2006, Los Angeles, California. Researchers make a surprising discovery. On certain days, 25% of Los Angeles' notorious smog is imported. Dust, soot, and pollutants from Asia are coming across the Pacific in huge brown clouds. They can travel 10,000 kilometers in just 3 days. V. Ramanathan and his team have chased these clouds in a research aircraft, sampling and tracking as they go.
We were flying off of San Francisco, and we detected several thousand particles per cubic centimeter. And we tracked it down all the way to China. The dust and soot coming from the factories.
China's booming economy means new coal-fired power stations are coming online at a rate of about one every week. In 2006, 1,000 new cars crowded onto the roads of Beijing every day. The resulting smog is no longer just a Chinese problem. The movements of the brown clouds are as fickle as the wind and can touch anyone, anywhere.
Early this year, I was in the middle of the Indian Ocean, about several thousand kilometers away from any pollution source. We saw 3-kilometer thick brown clouds filling the ocean.
No nation escapes. North America's pollution makes it to Europe in just a few days.
What this tells us is that we, each of us on the planet, are polluting the other person's backyard. And we are all connected.
We are also polluting our own backyards. For example, in Mumbai, India, just breathing is the equivalent of smoking 2.5 packs of cigarettes a day. In an odd twist, research has revealed that cleaning up the brown clouds could accelerate climate change.
It was settled this year in 2006 that as much as 50% of the greenhouse forcing has been masked by these brown clouds. Why? Because they intercept sunlight, which would have otherwise gone to the surface of the ocean and heated the ocean.
Without all that junk in the air, people's health should improve, but it's likely global warming will speed up. Another problem in the atmosphere reveals that large-scale change is possible. October 20th, 2006, Antarctica. The hole in the ozone layer grows 16% bigger than expected. It's now about the same size as the US and Russia combined. Scientists discovered this hole around 20 years ago. It's worrying because ozone is like sunscreen for the planet, shielding us from the sun's harmful ultraviolet rays. Fortunately, this story hides some good news. In 2006, levels of chemicals that deplete ozone stopped increasing. So sometime in the next 10 years, the ozone hole should start to shrink. This is thanks to a worldwide initiative called the Montreal Protocol. In 1987, governments agreed to phase out the production of the gases that destroy the ozone layer.
We have seen how we have stopped this problem before it became a major catastrophe. I don't see any reason why the same thing cannot be done with the global warming issue.
2006 shows that people will take steps to heal the planet, especially if there's money to be made doing it. This year, the most dramatic development for the health of the planet is that green is going mainstream. A shift in public opinion has made climate change a political issue. Maybe even more important, businesses see that going green means money. July 31st, 2006, Los Angeles. Climate change jumps to the front page as California and the United Kingdom sign an agreement committing both to dramatic cuts in carbon dioxide emissions. The agreement is a bold challenge to official U.S. policy and reflects changing public opinion. Multinational polls taken in July reveal that an amazing 70% of people surveyed rate climate change as a key issue. At the same time as the Los Angeles Agreement is announced, 25 of the world's biggest cities, including Delhi, Cairo, London, and Mexico City, also agree to cut carbon emissions. Together, these cities generate approximately 15% of the world's carbon dioxide.
I've been working on this problem for the last 35 years, and I'm absolutely delighted and excited to see this push. These are all just the right steps to get us on the right track.
Another push in that direction came with the remarkable growth in demand for low-carbon alternative fuels. October 18th, 2006, Guangxi, China. Builders break ground on one of the largest ethanol plants in the world. This is part of a global trend in producing ethanol and biodiesel. Right now, there are 106 ethanol plants in the U.S., and 48 more are under construction. The growth is a boon to farmers because all of these biofuels are made from renewable crops like corn, sugarcane, or palm trees. It's a net benefit in the fight against global warming, too. Compared to regular gasoline, ethanol cuts climate-changing gases by almost half. But in terms of their popularity, biofuels have a long way to go. This year, they make up only 1% of the total transport fuel consumed worldwide.
It's a very simple thing. The biggest variable that we're dealing with is wasteful consumption. And that's true of so many resources that we use as humans. And so you think, that's where we need to save ourselves. That's our salvation.
Salvation and going green seemed to get on the same track in 2006. Regardless of what prompted the shift, people voted with their wallets. Consumers' demand for solar energy jumped by 30%, and wind-generated electricity grew even faster. As people become more savvy green shoppers, they're demanding not only more green products, but more green companies too. Many firms, including some of the world's largest, concluded that by building new stores with renewable resources, adding wind generators and solar panels, they could not only do good, they could do well. For experts tracking the health of the planet, these are signs of hope. Mike Fay.
It is the realization by just about every human on this planet that global warming is real. Everybody has to come up to the plate. The Chinese have to come up to the plate. The Indians have to come up to the plate. The Brazilians have to come up to the plate. The American, everybody does. And if you have that, then we'll probably be okay. You know, we could very well be okay. But if we don't,
knowledge is power. Knowledge is the only solution, the only hope we have to be able to act on what we now know that we didn't know 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, but we know it now.
There are very many solutions that all of us can actually engage in. To plant trees is one very easy thing. Every one of us needs 10 trees in your life. 10 to take care of your own carbon dioxide. Go plant your own 10 trees. Don't use other people's trees.
But some are concerned that we've already passed a tipping point. If all the extra greenhouse gases humans have pumped into the atmosphere were removed, would the sea ice come back or the deserts retreat?
I can give a personal answer to that, which is I don't think so. But a more scientific answer is we don't know that yet. Fortunately, the problem is not as hopeless. We still have time, but we must act sooner than later.
So what's the final tally in this year's annual health checkup for the planet? Our growing population has a major impact on the planet's health, and especially on climate change. Our wants and needs ripple through every Earth system, contributing to the planet's rising fever. This year, our demand for and use of resources has made the condition of the land, wildlife, and the air critical. In our oceans, appetite for seafood has led to overfishing. The creation of reserves and restrictions do partly balance this, but growing acidity is the most troubling development of the year for the oceans, making their condition critical. Every system is having trouble, and in almost every case, it is connected to global climate change. But there is hope. Since people are the biggest variable in whether the planet's condition will improve or not, then the best news of the year is the dramatic change taking place in attitudes about the problem. In 2006, people seemed to get it. And in this, there is hope for the patient.
We have a chance. I think the window is closing. I think the next 10 years may be the most important in all of the future of humankind. So use the power that you have, whoever you are, whatever it is you do. The world needs what you've got to give.